You want to talk about corrupt institutions that have ties to children that do bad? I can't even say it. The royal family. My goodness gracious! There's so many
Prince Andrew.
Deep down the rabbit holes that you could go down
Whoa,
there.
whoa,
Not
whoa.
just them.
I heard rabbit hole.
They're bad. Yeah.
Speaking of rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Oh, nice segue.
So, what an excellent segue, Luke. That was perfect timing. My friends, we have to talk about this. I'm ashamed of each and every one of you.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Luke, Ian, Sydney, Lydia.
Yeah.
Critical thinking? What were you thinking? The New York Times says critical thinking. And, hold on, I'm going to read this for you. This is a quote from the New York Times.
No.
Critical thinking, as we're taught to do it, isn't helping in the fight against misinformation. Wait. Check out this first line.
Gosh.
All right. For an academic, Michael Caulfield has an odd request. Stop overthinking what you see online. Sit down, shut up, believe what you're told, and move on, good sir.
Yes, sir.
The New York Times, this is what they say. Mr. Caulfield, the digital literacy expert at Washington State, knows all too well, in Vancouver, mind you, knows all too well at this very moment, more people are fighting for the opportunity to lie to you than perhaps any other point in human history. Misinformation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we get it. Quote, we're taught that in order to protect ourselves from bad information, we need to deeply engage with the stuff that washes up in front of us. Mr. Caulfield told me recently, he suggested that the dominant mode of media literacy, if kids get taught any at all, and that's a good point, is that, quote, you'll get imperfect information and then use reasoning to fix that somehow. But in reality, that strategy can completely backfire. In other words, resist the lure of rabbit holes, in part by reimagining media literacy for the internet hellscape we occupy. Let me tell you what's really being said here, because I can translate for all of you. They don't want you investigating the news. They don't want you listening to conversations like this. You want to know how easy it is? I'll tell you guys all this. How do you know who's actually lying and who's telling the truth? The person who's telling you the truth tells you to listen to the ideas of other people and come to your own conclusion to be a free, sovereign individual. Why? I don't want power over you. I don't want to own your life or rule your life or make you do anything for me. I want you to find what's best for you. That empowers other people. The people who would tell you, don't think critically, don't investigate these things, don't watch these other channels. They do want things from you. They want to manipulate. They want to control you. They want you for a purpose. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you want to go home, dress up like a banana and juggle bananas. I don't care if you want to dress up like a clown and go to a clown party. That's your thing. You do your thing. Anybody telling you not to do what you want to do to be free as long as you're not hurting others, and who would lie to you and tell you not to listen to others, or would censor opinions, or my stars and garters, New York Times saying don't think critically.
Well, these
people are manipulating.
The way they phrase that, critical thinking as we're taught. So maybe what they're implying is we're not being taught proper critical thinking skills. And I can kind of identify what maybe he's saying is that there's a propensity when you're reading something to just disbelieve it. Like, you don't want to believe everything you see, obviously, but you don't want to necessarily disbelieve it either. So to rebuff ideas and to become so, contrastual just as a reflex is also a problem. And maybe that's what a lot of people are doing. It's
a fair point to say don't go down the rabbit hole, because then people become flat earthers and other weird stuff. But then saying critical thinking as we're taught. No. Look, I mean, I get the point for sure. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. What they're really saying is actually think critically. They're not saying that. The opening line was don't overthink things. So what? I open the newspaper and it says X just happened. An American destroyer was attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin. Don't overthink it. It just happened. Accept it as reality. And then, the Vietnam War starts, and then we find out later it didn't really happen. And, and maybe we should have overthought that.
I feel like when you're at university, there's like a big thing where you are taught not well to think critically. I don't know if that was, anyone else's experience, but that was definitely mine. And I feel like maybe that, I don't think that's what the New York Times is saying, just by the way. Like, I definitely think this is them being like, don't look too deeply into things, because then you might start questioning narratives that you're not supposed to question. Certainly... Sorry.
How were you taught critically? Like, what was your...
I just don't feel like we were. I feel like it was one of those things where, like, when I was at school... So my first degree was, I studied criminology, and then my master was in journalism, because, here I am sort of doing that. But I feel like there wasn't a huge emphasis on actually digging deeper into things. It was sort of like, accept this on the surface and maybe look a little bit into it. Here are the sources, the approved sources that we're okay with you looking at. Don't go beyond these. Or if you do, look at these, and these, because these are, supplementary readings. But it wasn't like, go and do your own research and then write me something new and impressive. That wasn't the emphasis. And I feel like that's what critical thinking is. Taking a prompt or an idea or whatever, reading something about it, going, okay, and then looking deeper and then going down this hole and going over here and basically building an idea of something from multiple angles and sources and coming to your own conclusions. We're not taught to do that. I wasn't taught to do that at school, at university. And I feel like a lot of young people coming out of that system probably don't have the skills that they should when it comes to thinking more in depth about things. I'm not saying that everyone has to be conservative or has to solely go to conservative sources and that's all they can read and that's the only place that's going to give them true and accurate information. No. Look at everything across the board and then derive your conclusion.
Yeah, times have changed in the last 20 years, especially with the internet, because now looking at everything is impossible. There's so much information relative to 1996 when I was, in school.
You can more easily find the sources. So if someone makes a claim and you can't verify the source, you can question it and hold it in doubt. We used to trust it more. When the New York Times would come out and say an anonymous source told us this, people would be like, I guess it's true, because what else are we going to do about it? Now we can actually be like, hold on, let me look into that. But here's the dangerous thing about what the New York Times is doing. They hold themselves to a special standard. That's basically it. In the article, they say, here's some 4 principles of what you should do when you encounter, potential disinformation or whatever. They say, 1, stop. 2, investigate the source. 3, find better coverage. 4, trace claims, quotes, and media to the original context, otherwise known as SIFT.
That sounds good.
Here's a quote. Is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. the best unbiased source on information about a vaccine? I'd argue no. And that's good enough to know we should probably just move on, he said. And I'd like to edit in a little sentence. While completely ignoring Bill Gates is not a scientist nor a doctor. You see the point. When Bill Gates comes out, they say, it's great. Bill Gates has a plan, and here's what he's saying. Here's his advice. And the New York Times says, well, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was an anti-vaxxer, so don't trust him. It's that they apply this standard of we must not overthink things and must analyze only when it's the narrative they want. So a good example is how Wikipedia works, for example. I can come out and say something like, I am in favor of a universal healthcare system that also has private health insurance, much like most of the developed world. I am not in favor of abolishing private insurance. And I was a big fan of Bernie Sanders in 2016. And they'll say, Tim Pool is not a good source on what he actually believes, even when he says it. But then I can come out and say something like, I am pro 2A, and they'll write, Tim Pool says he is full pro 2A. If it is a right-wing position, they'll say, well, he said it, so it's true. If it's a left-wing position, they'll say, nope, he's not a good source of this information, so Tim Pool can't be left-wing. They use whatever narrative they want. They use the rules only when it best suits them. Don't think critically, they say, unless, of course, it's negative. It's something negative against our opponents, in which case you must think critically and sift and go through the sources. That's the name of the game, I suppose.
This is why the media sucks, though. This is why the media is, I'm going to start. But, this is why the mainstream is... No, this is just why the mainstream media really gets under my skin, because you're right. And I think a lot of conservatives, obviously, being that's the space that I occupy a lot of the time, is that conservative libertarian-esque ground. But a lot of people on the right, too, I don't think are willing to admit that the right wing is just as bad when it comes to spinning things or cherry picking information and creating particular narratives around things where they're not quite telling the truth. For example, even that Coke thing, and I'm not defending what Coke did at all. I think that's gross. But they put out a statement that basically said, hey, this is not actually the sole focus of our curriculum. It was just part, I know, and you're making a face at me, but I'm just saying there's that caveat to the story that I think they're buttholes for what they did. And I think it's disgusting. And like I said, I put that in the video I made. I'm trying not to swear, Tim. It's so hard for me to try to find
Save it for the after
words.
show.
Aussies.
But it's, so my point here is that you're allowed to be like, Coke are a bunch of buttholes, and I think that they suck. What they did was shitty, and sorry. I was trying to avoid it. I was trying to.
You can't help it. It was just trying to get out. You did it.
What they did was yucky, and we don't like it, and whatever. But then you caveat and you go, but this is also what they said, because then it's a more you're not being dishonest.
Look,
there's no twist there.
I don't. Who's being dishonest?
I'm not saying anyone was being dishonest, but I'm saying that in this context,
I'll tell you.
More information is better, in my opinion.
I took issue with the wind turbine story in Texas because all the conservatives, not all of them, but all of these conservatives are coming out and saying the wind turbines froze and it shut down the grid and it caused all the damage. And in reality, also gas lines were freezing and there was a bunch of other issues. But it does seem, because we did have on one fellow who was an energy expert who basically said if it wasn't for the wind turbines going down, the demand for gas wouldn't have skyrocketed, causing this, domino effect essentially. But to come out and say that it was the sole reason for the crisis was not completely true.
Right.
So you have AOC coming out and saying, no, it's the problem of the gas lines. We need a Green New Deal. And many on the right saying it's the wind turbines. And I'm like, the reality is they didn't winterize the wind turbines.
Right.
There are wind turbines in Antarctica, and they work because it doesn't snow. So in Texas, they needed to better winterize them and prepare for this. And it seems like they weren't prepared for a winter storm, even though it happened in 2011.
Right.
So it's not entirely, yes, it's fair to say that when the wind turbines froze up, it caused a cascade effect. Texas could have prepared. Now, I hear them saying that Joe Biden denied some emergency relief. So it's always much more complicated than anything. But I will tell you this, for the most part, conservatives know what the left is thinking. And when they write about it, they don't need to snub details. They might give you their biased version of it, sure. But the left outright just manipulates.
Oh, I'm not saying that conservatives lie in the same way that the left does. Definitely not. But they still spin things. I still see things I go,
yeah.
I know for a fact that what is written in this article is part of the story. And there's a whole other element to this that if they just added a single sentence acknowledging that other part of it, it would be a more holistic, better, well-rounded story that people could read and go, okay, I now at least know basically more or less the full details of it. I'm not saying that, the left just make crap up. That's the thing that, I'm headbutting microphones here. That's the thing that annoys me so much is they just make things up. But I don't know. I hate the media in general, across the board, just because of the dishonesty and the twisting of information.
I got a correction, and I'm actually really happy about this.
Yeah.
So Poynter, I did a segment on this on my Timcast News channel. So I tweeted something very snarky. I said, Time magazine just came out and said that a cabal rigged the election. I'm sorry. They said they didn't rig the election. They fortified it by changing the rules and the laws and manipulating the flow of information. It was just snarky, but I made no declaration in this. Time magazine said this. And then I said, I'm sorry, they didn't say it was rigged because I was trying to be silly. So Poynter writes an article, and they said, a controversial YouTuber, Tim Pool, published a post which said the election was rigged. You see how they use weasel words to get through that? But the tweet did not say that. In fact, the tweet said it isn't rigged. It's fortified. So they used that as a manipulation. Here's the best part. So this one outlet, I'm not going to name because they did me the solid. They apologized, corrected immediately, and fixed the context in full, which did something amazing. In the full context from this Poynter article, it says Tim Pool's post was wrong. It claimed the election was rigged. I never said that. I never said the election was rigged. I never said Trump really won. I've long said it's over, Biden won, and I got so many Trump supporters who were mad at me for it for a long time, smack talking me, saying he's going against Trump, whatever. So they put this claim out there. They then got mad because what happened was Birdwatch, Twitter's independent user fact-checking system, determined that my tweet was in fact correct, not misleading. It said. And all the responses where people say Tim Pool is just referencing a Time magazine article. He's citing a Time magazine article. So another outlet sees the Poynter article and rewrites it because this is what news outlets do. It's called churnalism. Churn, like they just see a story and they rewrite it.
Right.
In this, the context evolved once more. Poynter wrote in a post from controversial YouTuber that stated the election was rigged. They didn't say I said it. They said the post stated it. So it's clever weasel words. Well, this next outlet said Tim Pool, who wrote the election was rigged. I reached out to the writer and the manager for the company, and I said, I humbly request a retraction. This is not correct. I said that it wasn't rigged, that it was fortified. I was just referencing a Time magazine article. So in this new article, this is really amazing. They included my tweet, and they removed the part where it said Tim Pool, who wrote the election was rigged, and said, in a tweet from Tim Pool, who cited a Time magazine article claiming that a cabal of wealthy elites were fortifying the election by changing rules and controlling the flow of information, Twitter flagged it as misleading. And with that simple correction, a legitimate correction. So my thanks to the writer on that. That was very honorable. And this guy's particularly lefty. It changed the entire context of the article. Before, the article was saying Tim Pool lied and Twitter said it was real news. By fixing the context of my tweet, it says Tim Pool was correct. The users correctly identified this, and Poynter is angry about it. So the article has now become the premier fact-checking organization for Facebook. Poynter is outraged that I made a factual tweet that was, it was just a snarky statement, that users flagged it as not misleading and it made them mad because they lost control of the narrative to a bunch of random Twitter users. So with that correction, I'm actually really, really happy. And I'm not entirely hopeful that will always be the case, but that's good news.
Sounds like the dude from the second article. Who's the company? The second?
I didn't name them.
Actually went and read the Time magazine article after you requested the retraction, and then was like, "Whoa, this is just it just seems like it." I don't know if that's actually what happened.
The crazy thing about how the media works.
Whoa.
Whoa! You got to
I
read
do
that
this-
Time article, by the way. Have you read that article?
Yeah, I did.
Well,
In
so
full.
yeah, go ahead.
Psycho.
There's a trick that I do on Twitter where I make statements that are vague, and I gotta admit I learned this like from Michael Malice, totally legit. Like, I love his tweets when he would respond to Trump saying we don't deserve him, and you're like, you don't know if it's saying it's good or bad. I love it. It's brilliant. And so I started making tweets where I would just try to avoid a hard, direct partisan opinion. The opinion would be a neutral, positive, or negative opinion, and then you can see in the responses from people what they think of you. So that tweet, for instance, where I said Time magazine said the election was rigged. I'm sorry, they didn't say it was rigged. Was I insulting Time magazine, or was I angry with Time for lying, or was I angry with the cabal of wealthy elites? Truth be told, both, to be honest. But I know to be precise with my language. So what's interesting is this guy from Poynter, the Poynter Institute, they decide who gets to be a fact checker for Facebook. He read my tweet and said, "Oh, that controversial Tim Pool claiming the election's rigged." The other guy just wrote what the guy said. But when he actually read the tweet, he took it at face value. Tim Pool is referencing Time magazine. That's it. That's fact.
My question is, if someone is to change the rules of an election, is that not rigging the election?
Well, I'm not. I didn't say that.
Yeah, I would not ask.
Tim's not making a statement. He's just being neutral.
Off the record.
He's just trying to
even
upset
though we're on the
everyone.
record right now.
The point is, my issue is I'm not going to come out and say the election is rigged. It's not. And
It's fortified.
Time magazine said.
All
the
right,
election was
right.
rigged.
Time magazine and.
But then I said they said it wasn't rigged because I was just being snarky. Time magazine literally said it wasn't rigging the election. It was fortifying it. The point I made in my video was, how would you define rigging something? If let's say Ian and Luke were going to race, and then
I tied Luke's shoelaces together.
Oh,
Right.
see, I was going to say we'll just hobble one of you, but you went
Well, that's
down
what
a
hobble
much,
means.
much nicer road.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Well,
I was
hobbling-
like, break a leg? Okay.
we could do that
I
too.
think hobbling is a reference to tying a rope to a donkey's legs.
Yeah, I think so.
No, I thought hobbling is where you get like, I watched a movie
crowbar
where
and-
this woman just went and just like smashed this guy's ankles together
Ah, that sounds horrible.
with a
All right.
What the
with a mallet.
Well,
It
well,
was-
look.
What film was that? Oh my god.
No
No,
But
wonder
it-
you
it-
Aussies
it-
are on the island.
Let me put it this way.
There's a reason why we're all related to convicts.
Oh, makes
Got it.
sense.
Put it like
The
that.
rule changes benefited everybody. It was make it easier to vote. But we know that Democrats are more likely to vote by mail.
Oh,
So
I see.
while the rule change would have benefited both sides, Democrats are more likely to vote by
So
mail.
if Luke and I were about to race, and I was like, let's race on one of those horizontal elevator things that at the airports where the ground is moving forward on it, and we run. Am I rigging the race?
It would be more like if you
yes,
said
because I'm changing
No.
the physics of the race.
If you said this, let's say there's a dude who's allergic to peanuts, and you were like, we're going to race, but I think it's fair that we give everyone a big jar of peanut butter for energy. Well, one guy, peanut butter is normally good. Your opponent can't eat it. So you are saying, no, we're giving peanut butter to everyone.
Plus
It's not changing the rules
And
to favor us.
They did it covertly. Whatever they did covertly, which is
Well,
if we
no,
knew
I-
ahead of time
No, that's
that they were
the
gonna
fault.
be
That's the
sh-
fault of the media.
Is it?
They like in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, where these rule changes happened, it was publicly known.
Oh.
But you rely on a national media to come out and tell you what was happening. So the issue was that the question of rigging is not about it's not necessarily about whether or not fraud occurred, because that I don't think that's an issue here. The bigger issue is, were the changes constitutional? And that's basically it. The other big news in that regard is that Supreme Court today said,
Oh,
no,
yeah, Clarence Thomas. Yeah.
Clarence Thomas was awesome.
What did he say?
He's- I'll
it-
let Tim take this one.
the Pennsylvania's been suing. It's because I've covered this so much, and we had Sean Parnell on the show several times. Pennsylvania sued, arguing that the mail-in voting law was unconstitutional because their constitution in PA state says absentee ballots must be for this reason, and then they created universal mail-in voting, which basically negated absentee voting. The lower court said, you are correct and will likely win on the merits. And then I think it got appealed to the state Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court said, you're too late. The merits don't matter. This bill was passed in fall of 2019. Therefore, it's done. So they filed an appeal to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court today said it's a moot point. Trump's not going to be president. So we refuse to hear this. Clarence Thomas got angry and he basically said, if we wouldn't hear the case before the election and now we won't hear the case after the election, we have not solved the problem of breaking the rules in the election. And it is not a moot point. And he was pissed. He dissented. Amazing. He was the only one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Have
anyway,
him on the show.
Justice Clarence
Let's
Thomas.
do it, yeah.
Yes, that
Get
would
out
be
here.
incredible.
That'd
I
be
would
so cool.
love to have him. He's amazing. But I don't-
Yeah, he's a busy guy.
yeah, he's a busy guy. But that'd be awesome. He's a rad dude. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.